Greetings and welcome to our daily Devo for Wednesday, the 15th of November. Today, our daily Devo is entitled, Jesus Healed a Disabled Woman on the Sabbath. And many found that shocking that he would work on the Sabbath. Luke chapter 13, verses 10 through 17 are the verses that the devotion comes from this morning. They quote here for us verse 16, "Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" Jesus always asks good questions. I wish I was as good as that. She struggled to find a seat in the synagogue. Her spine was bent and fused in a way that made it impossible for her to stand upright. But as difficult as movement was, she came to hear Jesus speak. Good example, huh? She did not expect to be healed or to become the center of attention, but Jesus had other plans. The synagogue leader did not see the same woman Jesus saw. The synagogue community chose him for his job because of his attention to detail. He was good at what he did, organizing the worship service and monitoring its progress for any kind of disruption. As he watched people arrive, he gave little attention to the disabled woman. First, she was a woman, tolerated but not celebrated in the male-dominated world of the synagogue. And second, in this case, a cloud of suspicion hung over her. Within first century Judaism, many thought a disability was a sign of a moral failing. You run across that in John 9, verses 1 and 2. So despite her quiet piety and physical challenges, this synagogue leader felt less compassion for her than he would for his draft animals needing water on the Sabbath. Jesus saw someone different. Her bent frame, the difficulty with which she walked, and the pain she experienced in sitting immediately filled him with compassion. Jesus did not see her as a lesser woman of value than the men in the room, but as a daughter of Abraham, valued as a child of God and as a member of God's chosen people. Her disability was not punishment for a specific sin, but part of a cosmic struggle between his Father and Satan. And because Jesus saw her differently, he treated her differently. Although it was the day of rest, a day when healing miracles caused controversy, Jesus invited her to rise and spoke words of release from her infirmity. Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. And that's in verse 13 of our passage. And as she stands, we are challenged to inspect not only how we see her, but how we see others who walk into our places of worship, lest we see them differently than Jesus does. All are people of value who deserve our attention and compassion. Amen and amen. It's not unusual, not just in the church, but in the culture as a whole, that people with disabilities are viewed as being less than because they're dependent, because they can't do things without the help of others, because they can't really contribute. At least those are the things we think in our head. The things that we think in our head like that are totally wrong and totally not Christ-like. Were they not also created in God's image? Did not Jesus also die for them on the cross? The moment we start seeing others as being less than, and especially the moment we start seeing ourselves as more than, we need to hear the words. Same thing, put a couple of different ways. Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. And do not think of yourself as ever being better than. That's not the humility that is Jesus. The humility he showed, he touched this woman, healed her on the Sabbath. He broke a couple of rules there. Lepers that he touched, the blind that he touched. Anybody with an infirmity was considered unclean in that culture, and Jesus kept doing it anyway because it was the right thing to do. Their legalistic laws, their self-righteous way of looking at things had led them way, way off the path of truth. That is the truth of their God, their compassionate God. This is a good story, great story. A lot of these where Jesus has to confront these guys because they're bothered about his Sabbath observance. They're good learning tools for us. Doing what is right is always right. Don't care what day of the week, don't care what time of the day, don't care about any other detail. Doing right is always right. That's the way Jesus lived. That's the way you and I need to live every day as well. Blessings to you, and do what is right today in the eyes of God.